But let's turn our attention to the back seven, the cornerback group, Damon. As we mentioned, it's changed a lot from last year. There it is in all its glory. Not one player over 27 years old. Say what you want. They got athleticism out the yin-yang, and it starts with the aforementioned Sean Murphy-Bunting coming over from originally a Tampa Bay Buccaneer, had a good year in Tennessee last year, and then comes to Arizona on a 3-year contract, 27 years old, the default CB1, which in a perfect world, he's probably your CB2, a high-end CB2. But what about CB1? Well, look no further, in my opinion, to the two mid-round, in this case, Max Melton and Garrett Williams selections you've made each of the last 2 years. Garrett Williams, third rounder out of Syracuse, missed some time last year, rehabbing a torn knee, came back, immediately had a pick in his first game against Seattle. And Max Melton, to me, has the highest upside of any corner on this list. Respectfully to Elijah Jones and Jaden Davis and the aforementioned Murphy-Bunting and Garrett Williams, number 16, when you think about he's the ideal Jonathan Gannon corner, a diamond in this draft, somebody we did not have on our radar, did not assume that they were in on. And then you turn the tape on, and it's like, yeah, this guy fits Jonathan Gannon, Damon to a T. And if you need evidence, go turn on the game against Ohio State.
Yeah, I like what Fishbowl Flash says here in the comments. He says, this is far from the Marco Wilsons of the world.
That's right.
And it truly, like, looking at this list, when I made this, Johnny, like you didn't request me to put their ages on there. I solely was like, I thought about it, and I was like, this group is so young.
It's a great point.
And I wanted to put it on there to just highlight what their ages are, because even Keitrell Clark and Garrett Williams, are second-year players. Starling Thomas, he's a second-year player as well, isn't he? So,
yeah.
I mean, other than Sean Murphy-Bunting, everybody has been drafted within the last 2 seasons here. And, yeah, I mean, you're right about Max Melton. He's absolutely the guy based off of the capital you used on him that you would, want to take that cornerback 1 spot eventually and hope that, he develops into that guy. And I think corners can come into the league right away and be pretty solid players. I don't think the learning curve is as huge at cornerback,
Yeah.
Like you, as long as you're athletic enough, and like we saw Sauce Gardner come in, and like, I'm not the biggest Sauce Gardner fan in the world, but he's absolutely one of, the 2-3 best cornerbacks in football from the moment he stepped into the league. So,
yeah, and I think to your point, like, these guys are going to have success because Jonathan Gannon, and he's a DB kingmaker. We've talked about it, but their success, I also think, is going to be predicated on what the front seven is able to do. Like, I think this is good enough, frankly. I know a lot of people, we were doing our mock last Friday, shield your eyes. It was horrendous via PFF mock draft simulator. We took a corner in the first round. I don't like doing that. And I can tell you what, I don't think the Cardinals like doing that either. I think the Cardinals, in my opinion, just brief time around Gannon and Austin Ford and studying their backgrounds, philosophically, how they want a team build. Every year or every couple of years, let's take a corner within the top 50 to 60 picks. Let's sign somebody like a Murphy-Bunting, reasonable cost, and let's try to hit on a couple late day 2, day 3 picks. And then let's invest our premium resources, our first round picks, into defensive linemen that are going to blitz the shit out of the quarterback. Who does that? Who does that remind you of? San Francisco, right? The Rams outside of Jalen Ramsey, the one-off, like, that's how they operate as well. Like, in my opinion, and I've always lived by this, Damon, it's like the Cardinals for so long, they've hit on a lot of first-round corners. It's fun. Dominique Rodgers, Cromartie, Patrick Peterson. But the pass rush at the end of the day can elevate these guys exponentially. I don't think it's fair in today's NFL when you can't touch a receiver, when everybody's got 2-star wideouts, it seems, to ask a Max Melton, hey, go out there and cover him on an island. It's not the NFL anymore. So the Cardinals are going to say, okay, we got a bunch of guys who are athletic. Everybody in this draft class, they prioritize being able to take the football away. They all have tremendous ball skills, all the way down to Jaden Davis as a 7th rounder out of Miami. And then you think about, okay, we're going to give some yardage. But you know what? We're going to get home at the quarterback, and we're going to get some errant throws, and we're going to take the football away. So to me, it's like, I think this is a group that, like the offense, has a lot of staying power beyond this year.
Yeah, I absolutely love the fact that you look at your coaches and you kind of feel more comfortable with a certain position group or two really, because the safeties and the corners, because of the specialty that they have. Like it's such an advantage to have a coach that like automatically just improves a handful of players on your roster,
Yeah.
or that just knows football well enough that they can kind of scout out and undervalued players and find guys that like a Garrett Williams who, got hurt and, probably would have been drafted a lot higher if he didn't, or a Keitrell Clark, who was, I believe, a 6th-round pick, and who played pretty well in his first season until he kind of, a little inexplicably, in my opinion, got benched. But like I feel like you have a core of guys here that are young and that you can build off of, and it's not a huge need going into next season. So you're right. Maybe we did kind of screw up drafting a cornerback that high in the mock draft simulator, because
it was just good value at the end of the day. But like Garrett Williams and Max Melton aren't going anywhere. And I don't think either of them are busting. They're going to be contributors one way or the other. Sean Murphy-Bunting's making good money. They vetted him clearly. Yeah, like you have a core group now. Now, do you have an alpha? Do you have a 1? I don't know. But like I feel better about this group than I do about edge rusher. It's the same thing we said about the defensive line the other day. It's like I don't know if there's a superstar in this group. I don't know if there's a perennial Pro Bowler. But I look at that group right now. That's serviceable as hell. Yeah. I feel totally fine about that. And where the Cardinals were last year, as you mentioned, with Marco Wilson and company, night and day.
I think this is the group I'm by far the most excited to see on the defensive side of the football, because I think from a safety standpoint, you kind of know what you got. You have Buddha, you have Jalen Thompson. They're probably your two most solidified players. The D line, it's going to be a massive upgrade, but I don't know that any of those guys are necessarily like huge ceiling type guys like a Justin Jones or a Bilal Powell. I think they're floor raisers. The edge rusher group, we've talked about it ad nauseum. Like I think there's some potential there, but I think that's definitely the weak point of the team right now. Like,
no doubt.
I'm assuming that that's going to be the weak point throughout the season. The corners, I think, have a chance to become a really, really solid unit. Yeah. Like I like a lot of these guys, but a lot of them are unproven as well because they're such young players. But I do think there's a ton of talent there, and it's going to be really fun to watch play out next season, because like if Max Melton goes out there and is just a stud, or even like Elijah Jones, who was a 3rd-round pick, like they used pretty high capital on him. That's just gonna be like a cornerstone for this franchise for years to come.
They all have high floors, is how I look at it. Like Keitrell Clark and Starling Thomas started games for this team last year, and like I'm not going to sit here and be ignorant and say, hey, they're not going to start this year. But I think the Cardinals probably would prefer that they don't start. If they had to, fine. I think those are special team depth guys that certainly have a place. And you're going to roll with the guys that have the promise, that have the top 50 grades in the NFL draft.